Serbia is one of the most beautiful places in the world, but behind the scenes there are extremely eerie places that are very unnerving, including freaky natural formations, creepy churches, and ghost castles. This is a hub for dark tourism, but I would suggest never visiting. These are the top 5 haunted places in Serbia you should never visit. In at number 5 we have Ghost Castle. In the town of Biosin, Serbia, on the slopes of Fruška Mountains, rests an abandoned building, in ruins and long forgotten. Known originally as the Spica Castle, it was once one of the most beautiful sights in all of Serbia, with glass gardens, peacocks and deer, somewhere you would only hear about in a fairy tale. It was built in the late 19th century by Edward Eddie Spica, who was the co-owner of the Biosin cement factory. Spica hired the famous architect Imre Stindl, best known for his work on the Hungarian Parliament building in Budapest. The architectural styles of Spica Castle include elements of Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque and Romanesque art. In 1889 the mansion had been finished and the Spica family moved into the castle and lived there until World War II, then leaving in 1941 and moving to Germany. After the war, the ownership of the castle went to the state, and then at various points in time it hosted a school, library, the first Biosin radio station and a restaurant, but as time went on the building was slowly deteriorating. It was also used as a film set for many movies, including the 1970 American war film Kelly's Heroes starring Clint Eastwood. Today the castle is deserted, surrounded by wires, without door or windows and crumbling rooftops. The locals had nicknamed the building as the Ghost House due to many people hearing, seeing and coming into contact with paranormal entities. On more than one account, people hear footsteps and screams coming from one of the bedrooms. This creepy, decaying building is scary enough, but many dark tourism enthusiasts come here to see if they too can come into contact with any ghosts and haunted beings. There is a theory from the locals that a boy was roaming the home with his friends, but had gone off on his own and never returned. The boy's friends said they heard screams, and when they had run over to the area it was coming from nothing. They had searched in and around the building, but the boy was never found, and to this day people still hear his screams. This is one place you should never visit because you may never come back. Coming in at number 4 we have Devil's Town. Devolja Veros, which translates to English as Devil's Town, is a very unusual rock formation said to be created by soul erosion. These peculiar rock towers are located between the Devil's Gully and Hell's Gully near the town of Kuršumlija in southern Serbia. Located on Mount Radan are more than 200 stone formations, 2 to 15 meters high and up to 3 meters wide, with strange stone caps. This particular place is a huge tourist destination, not only because of its beautiful and unique looking rock towers, but also because of the legend surrounding this eerie place. Locals believe that these weird looking rock formations are actually petrified remains of a cursed wedding party. Apparently these poor people drank from a nearby spring, which attracted the devil himself, who tried to cloud their minds and force a brother and sister into marriage. Once the word got to a local fairy, she decided to interfere and turn them all into stone. The locals still insist that the area is haunted by the devil and refuse to spend a night there. If you're brave enough to go to this cursed place, all I have to say is don't overstay your welcome. Devil's Town and their odd looking rock towers continue to be a very rare natural phenomenon, and was actually a nominee in the new 7 Wonders of Nature campaign. Definitely one of the most visited places in Serbia, whether it's because its beauty or its haunted past. It's unknown its true origins, but it's definitely a very creepy place. If you're still willing to travel and see this place, maybe just leave before the sun sets, just in case. Coming in at number 3 we have the Skull Tower. This stone structure is located in Nis, Serbia, and almost 1,000 human skulls are embedded in the walls. Constructed by the Ottoman Empire in 1809 following the Battle of Zagar during the First Serbian Uprising. During the battle, Serbian rebels under the command of Stephen Sindelik were surrounded by the Ottomans on Siga Hill near Nis. Knowing that he and his fighters would be killed if they were captured, Stephen detonated a powder magazine within the rebel entrenchment, killing not only himself but also his fighters and the Ottoman soldiers. After this massacre, the governor of the Rumelia Eyalet, Hushid Pasha, ordered that a tower be made from the skulls of the fallen. The tower is 15 feet high and consisted of 952 skulls embedded on 4 sides in 14 rows. So many lives were lost at the Skull Tower, and the history and skulls displayed are proof of that, and many believe that these lost souls still roam the area and is considered to be a very haunted attraction in Siberia. In 1861, Mithat Pasha, the last Ottoman governor of Nis, ordered that the skull tower be dismantled, but that did not happen. It was eventually restored and the chapel was renovated in 1937. In 1948, Skull Tower and the chapel enclosing it were declared cultural monuments of exceptional importance and came under protection of the Socialist Republic of Serbia, and further renovation of the chapel occurred in 1989. Many Serbians see this display as a symbol of the country's struggle for independence. As of this year, only 58 skulls remain in the tower walls, and Cinderleg's skull is said to be featured in an enclosed glass container next to the structure. The Skull Tower is a very popular tourist attraction, visited by 30,000 to 50,000 people annually to see this eerie and creepy display. Coming in at number 2, we have Mount RtanJ. This is a mountain located in eastern Serbia between the towns of Boljevec and Soka Banja, and is one of the highest peaks in Serbia and is another huge phenomenon. Many stories have emerged from onlookers and tourists that go to RtanJ. Stories about unusual flying objects which circle around the peak, fiery spheres, aliens and voices in unknown languages have been some of many things people experience here. This mountain is also talked about by many due to its beauty, size and perfect geometrical shape resembling a pyramid. RtanJ actually has the same angle of inclination as the Pyramid of the Moon in Mexico, and same angles as the Pyramid of Cheops, and many believe that this is not coincidence. The mystery surrounding RtanJ is still the reason for many scientists' arguments. Some say the mountain is actually an ancient pyramid, a natural wonder, the work of a higher power of even aliens. Another local legend explains that the castle of a wizard was located on RtanJ mountain, where he held his treasure, but the castle had eventually disappeared within the mountain, trapping the wealthy sorcerer inside with his treasures, making this a very popular location for treasure hunters in search for lost gold and gems. So many questions loom over Mount RtanJ and has created a whirlwind of theories and tourists to come and try and experience the many things rumored to happen here. Others come to RtanJ for the rare healing herbs that grow in the mountains, and it emits a type of energy which is beneficial to human health, but this is only a rumor. Everyone who has visited this mountain say they experience a mysterious energy. We may never know if this is positive or negative. And finally, in at number 1, we have Sava Savanovic's Mill. This is one of the most well-known places in Serbia for its ghost stories. This mill is located in the hill of the small village of Saroj in the west-central part of Serbia, 3 hours away from the town of Belgrade. The story is that Sava Savanic was a vampire and the first ever vampire that resided at this mill. According to one story, Sava was a wealthy cattle trader and he had fallen in love with a much younger girl who he had proposed to, but she had rejected him. Blinded by anger and jealousy, he decided to kill the girl. After the locals of Saroj found out, they beat Sava to death and buried him outside the local cemetery. But actually, Sava had risen and became a vampire and began drowning everyone who would come to grind grain in his mill. For years, the locals of Saroj lived in fear of the murderous vampire until they came together and stabbed him with a hawthorn skate, killing him forever. And legend says that a butterfly escaped from Sava's grave, which meant that Sava is still visiting the mill to this day. The citizens of the village tell many stories about the horror they have faced from this creature, and it's the most known horror story throughout all of Serbia. And in 1880, one of the most famous Serbian authors, Milovan Glisic, wrote the book 90 Years Later, rooting from the story of this famous vampire, and was in fact published 17 years before Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then in 1973, all of the stories of the vampire were turned into Serbia's first horror film, Butterfly. The old Sava mill was left abandoned for a long time until it was renovated by the local owner of the village cafeteria, and after all of these stories swirling, Sava has become a local legend, and tourists come from near and far to visit this mill. Many still believe that Sava to this day still haunts the mill, and is considered one of the most haunted places in all of Serbia. Well, there we have it. I will see you in the next video.